hear the compressor. I think I need a new one. But this is part one of body work. And when I just say body work, we've been doing some body work, but I'm just talking the general body work.
Okay, what you see here is moving out of town. What exactly are they moving out of town for? Well, they've been eliminated. It's bits and particles of dust, rust to be more precisely, settling on the surface of this metal existence, has been forced out of its environment. It's a slow movement, but it's happening now, as we speak. The migration is immense. It's already happened over there. It's actually quite desolate over there. But it looks like new things will be coming better than they ever were. So that's what's happening. And we'd like to thank the lad for that. So what we're doing, we're just taking some plastic, muriatic acid, and torching what's left of the surface rust that's accumulated on both of these doors over the past few weeks. Let's put some down, put the plastic over it. Alright, you get a good look at this door, driver's side. Went through the real light duty acid treatment on it. That's the original metal right there. That's what you're looking at. I'm gonna go through and give it a quick sand down with the 80 grit, just knock any residue off. We have already neutralized it. We'll go through, get this ready. Well, as you can see, we have both doors in primer. Not without drama. The compressor, the 60 gallon, 6.5 horsepower that I've had since about 2001, has decided that it doesn't want to pump any air anymore. We was able to do some sanding earlier, and it's gotten a little slow lately. But when I went to mix up the primer, of course, when you get it all together, it had run for about 20 minutes and only gave me 5 psi, and I'm talking 5 psi total. Couldn't get nothing straight from it, so Roadrunner John loaned us his small compressor. Many thanks to Roadrunner John. Alright, so we painted the doors, inside the doors here in the shade, and now I have them sitting out here in the nice toasty sun, kind of baking that on, helping it get nice and dry. I had just enough paint, and you can see I ran out on right here, and that's okay because this is going to have a door panel on it, so I painted these inside portions last. But I did everything we needed, which is basically the entire jamb all the way around. The finish section, which is this part, and then from this line up.
and we did it on both doors. Came out looking pretty good. Of course, they're not perfect. They're old, previously rusty doors, and we do all the acid treatment. So, and when you do the acid, just make sure you're very thorough. And it is tough to get it out of all these seams and stuff. So, in some cases, if you don't, and we'll see if I have to deal with this or not. You might have some instances where if the doors get wet or there's a lot of humidity, you might have some kind of coming through. We can always be washed out because the neutralization has taken place. It's the water, baking soda has gotten to it, but it might just be a way to touch it up later. But usually it's on these seams, real tight little areas. And I used to get stuff from Ready Strip the same way. You'd power wash them just like they suggested, and you get a little bit of acid leakage out of these. And as long as you are thorough, like I said, you will get 99.9% of it out. You'll just have a little bit that's hiding in there somewhere, but it won't ruin anything. You just clean it up and go on. So it sounds kind of loose, when you let it. Usually it go like that. This one's so there's probably something we need to look at there, and let's see if we can get in contact with somebody who can set us up on that. Maybe it's an easy fix. This has been a really good compressor. I bought it about almost 20 years ago at Sears. It's Craftsman. Been a really good one. So we'd like to be able to keep it in service if we can. Okay, we're going to attempt to hang a door. Now, I've hung the doors on this van a couple of times just for a couple of different reasons, test fit. But the difference this time around is we have nice fresh paint on both sides, the jam side and the door side. So I put tape around a lot of the edges and corners where we could be bumping into. Not so much here because this will get sanded anyways and finished, but kind of the stuff that's on the inside of the jam. You don't want to have to really touch that up again unless you just absolutely have to. Another thing is we don't have any of the hardware in the door, like the latch for it to grab onto the striker, and I don't have the striker on here. So, one thing I did do, I need to get a few more of them because I just have some old ones. It's the rubber bumpers that are up in the corners that when you slam the door keep it from going too far. So I got one down here and I got one up here. And I don't guess they have one down low unless it was erased when I went and put the new piece in there. I'll have to look at the other side. I got one over there. So what we want to do, we get our hinges, the face of it. This is where the door will physically bolt on right here. So you can position this one about the same. Surprisingly, my little stool here is an adjustable with a hydraulic pump in it. I set it right about there, and that's where the bottom of the door will sit. And I put these thick pieces of foam across here. That's a good start. Just don't let it get away from you. We're actually in a good spot here. Let it roll around like that. And again, you can move it around, move the bolt around while you're turning it. Pretty good there. I notice it does need to raise because if I start to swing it, it's going to grab into the paint there, which the tape's covering it. So, yep. One thing I think we should do is try to get it up as far as we can. Possibly even use this. Okay, we'll be careful and try to close it.
think it dropped. It might be alright. Trial and error. So our up and down really needs more adjustment. So with it like this, I will say, and you can probably tell from there, the bottom is out and the top is actually in. So we need to kind of break the difference. More so bring this back in. Alright, so I took the door in, brought it out this way a little bit, which would translate into it being in here. When you close it. And I took the top out just a little bit, so I basically did that. And we cleared it pretty good there. Pushing you back against the bumpers. Body line maybe could go up a touch. I mean, 32nd of an inch. So if you kind of compare it to this gap, it's in pretty good shape. The bottom, and you see there's a bit of a gap right here, and then it narrows a little bit right up into here. We're pretty good here, so when we go to open it, it doesn't interfere. Here's where we was hitting earlier. It rubbed the tape loose, so we'll have to touch that up, and a little bit of the inside edge there. So this is a pretty good spot. We can always give it a micro adjustment if we don't like something about it later. So what you want to do, if you like it, carefully open it back up, even though you have all the bolt on the top and the bolt on the bottom, is go through and tighten every bolt down. You got 3 down here, 2 up here. Make sure we pick it up right, bring it in here. Let's see. I don't want to hold on. It's actually a little high. Higher than I'd like. I'm just kind of see if I can feed a bolt. This time I try to stick one up top. See what we can do with that. Same situation as the other side. It'll set down on this if you're not careful. So we'll have to make sure we'll get these bolts in close to where they're tight. I'll go ahead and get all 5 of them threaded. We'll work them down close, not all the way, not where it drags on the inside of the hinge, but just enough to where you can probably slip a few pieces of paper between there. That'll give you enough where you can move it around and it not totally adjust everything wrong. That's not too sloppy. You want to eliminate the slop, and let me grab the wrenches. Well, they're all both tight. Test fit here. What I could tell, let's see. Okay, our body line here, it's too high. It might be too far. Yeah, it's too far out at the top.
and it's actually a little bit inward at the bottom, so we need to take the whole door and do that. Now, one thing you gotta remember, and I'm thinking of it now, this line here is kind of perplexed me. It's high, but if you get the weight of the door, the window, that's where you might have to readjust a few things. Actually, it's not bad for it to be up high, because with no weight on it, it's going to be more springy. You put the weight of the window and all the gears and all that stuff in it, it might bring this down just enough, and it'll line it up like that. But if I let go, it'll spring loose. And there we go. There's our driver's side door. If you look over, you'll see the passenger side door is in. It's a little dark, yes, but it's in. Like the color. It's like a fire engine now. And the paint is still fairly tender. So when I'm done for the night, I'm just going to let the doors hang open like this. Now, get all the air in there. You won't have them touching against the bumpers and then making a little spot. So we'll just leave them like that for the night. It'll get pretty warm out here during the day, even with the garage door closed and I'm not out here. It'll actually help bake it a little bit better. Pretty cool. It's weird when you have a project and it hasn't had certain parts on it for a long time, and then when it gets them again, it's like, wow, cool. You take them for granted. That's weird.
Okay, so it's a week later from what you last saw when we put the doors on the van. Did all the adjustments and all that kind of stuff. I'm going ahead, I'm going to clear off these cargo doors, side and rear, get them sanded, bust off any rust that's on here. You know, hopefully we'll get them in primer by the end of the day, maybe even some red on the inside of it. One thing I've noticed, and you can always kind of figure out the history of a vehicle, especially if it's been setting. I have photographic evidence of this thing sitting for at least 15 years. The front of the van was facing south, okay? This is one of the side cargo doors, which was on the passenger side, so it was facing west. And when you had the sunset, or the later day sun, the hot sun of the day, it was on this every day for nearly 15 plus years. That's one of the rear cargo doors, so it was facing north. When I got it, it actually had moss on it. And one thing you'll notice when you're sanding this stuff down, the paint on this one pretty much exploded as I was hitting it with the sander. It was so dried up and brittle, it just flew off. That one, on the other hand, is a little bit more effort. You gotta really dig into it. It didn't quite have the sun baking properties that the side did. We got this one cleared off. We're going to do some rust treatment on it, get it off there. That one, we're about half done with it, and then we only got one more door to do. I've got the other one sitting over here. We did it last night. It's one of the side cargo doors. So a little bit of work. We should be ready to start putting this stuff back on the van. Alright, so we got all three of these doors sanded down, and I've got shop towels laying on there, and I got it soaked in muriatic acid. And the reason I did that is so I don't have to use as much acid, so it doesn't run all over the edge, run down in the holes. But it just contains it there, and I don't have to keep wetting it. And so it allows it to just kind of suffocate the rust out of there, melts it out, pull it up, you move it around. And it actually works pretty well that way if you don't want to make a big full-blown mess. But I thought I'd show you some of the other stuff that are not vehicle related here at the Hoosier garage. Just some improvements that we're making here and there and everywhere. Let's take a look. Alright, so when I bought this house, this property, back about 10 years ago, the edge of the sheeting underneath our shingles here, it was chipboard, and it had decided to just rot away because, well, what do you think when you have it right on the edge and it didn't have any of the edging, the aluminum edging on it. So it rotted, looked very rough, and so I ripped all that out. It was about 10 inches worth up that way. Then they got regular plywood up there. So I ripped all that out, and we are going to put some new in, me and my dad, who's much more well versed at this carpentry part of it than I am. He's kind of what I am to the vehicle part of it. So we went ahead and put some new fascia board, because the fascia board had a gutter on it and it had all rotted out.
And then we had a panel, like a soffit panel that goes underneath here. That's in pretty good shape, so we're going to repaint that and put that back up. But we got new fascia board. We're going to put a new cap end on here, the new piece of sheeting underneath there, and it'll straighten all those shingles out. And then we'll trim out whatever's, you know, falling apart there. And probably put a new cap in here. And this end down here is a bit worse. It's been down longer because of the tree being above it. And I tore out, you can see where from here to the edge of the joist, that was where the chipboard was. And I went through there and just clawed it all out without taking the shingles loose. That's kind of a job, but managed to get it. And the fascia board's been off here for a little while. It was all rotted off. And we've got some termite damage there, but we'll probably just cut that loose and put a new scab on there. That's what these pieces are, if you're not familiar. You just scab some new pieces on to give you something to nail to. But you can see our shingles are in really rough shape here and just really down looking. So we're going to put a new piece under there and refresh our shingles, put some new fascia board and a new underpinning on there as well. So hopefully freshen up the Hoosier garage, because it looks pretty ghetto right now, right? And then when we get the edges, you can see the light coming through there. When we get all these eaves and overhangs finished up, then we're going to put some drywall in here, finish all this out, have a nice smooth look. Our videos might actually look a lot cleaner background wise. And then we're even thinking about putting the door back here so you can enter into the back part where all the parts are and all our storage stuff is. And then we can contain this room in the winter for heat. And when we got the new door, when we started making these videos, we got a video on the door. I went ahead and got an insulated door. All these are insulated walls. So, just a little side item, trying to make the garage nice, because that's all part of it, right? Have a nice place to work. A lot of this stuff's going to be cleaned up. It's going to go back in the van anyways. So we'll get that cleaned up. And then at some point the duster will come in here and we'll do pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to get back to this, clean the rest of it off. It's cleaning up really good. And like I said, we'll get to this one, get all this rust off of here, that real old surface rust. Alright, so after a long weekend of painting the inside of the doors that go on here, I think it's time to hang them. And this side here, we're good on the holes. You got the original holes here, but since we replaced this panel, we'll have to reestablish the holes. Probably from the back side, you can go in there and figure them out. We'll get to that. I'll hang this door first. The hinges are painted. They're right over here. And they look to be pretty good. I've tried to be kind of thorough, but we may have to touch them up, you know, depending on where they are in their turn. Now, one thing about these is they only seem to go on not one way, but like the holes are arranged in a certain way. They are both pretty much the same. The same characteristics, side to side, front and back, same length, everything. So we'll slide one down. Of course, it'll either go this way or it'll go that way. It shouldn't go that way because the door would never close. So we'll slip that in there, get some bolts on it. That was probably one there. This had a little bit more of the body sealant on it. I might have to shave that down some. We'll see. Alright, so I have the bolts snugged into place to hold these hinges, and even with it being sanded down, repainted, you could still see the impression of the washer for each bolt that it left on that frame. So what I like to do is just try to use that as a trace and just put it right back to where it was, finger tighten all 6 of those bolts. And now I'm going to take the door shell and I'm going to slip it up on those hinges. We're going to have a couple bolts right here. We don't have to have the full kit, but just, you know, enough to pin one here,
and hopefully it's going to go pretty smooth. I'll set the bolts here. I got a little tub of white grease. We can dip the little bit of thread in there, that way it'll give you some rust prevention. I'm just going to stick one in there so it don't fall off. Go about halfway in on the threads. Just gonna let it sit there. So there's our first glimpse at the door being painted and back on there. Okay, so I could not get this door adjusted properly. This piece kept wanting to hit the hinge. And I just had this hunch that if I took the hinge off the bottom and swapped it with the one on the top, maybe there's a little difference in the spacing on the gapping here. Although this is a very snug hinge, and this one really isn't too different. It's got a little bit of play in it. I thought, well, let's take it off and try it up here. And when I had it off the van like this with the one that was on it when we was trying to test it, as best as I could do was getting within a 16th of an inch to this edge here. Now I swapped the hinges, and the best I could do here is much better. It's well over 1/8 of an inch. So I think this is probably the hinge that needs to be on the top. Now we'll put the other one on the bottom. I'll go ahead and bolt it in, and we'll just try to slip these into the frame on the door, on the body, and see if I can get any better result there. So, they look identical, but there is a little bit of a gap difference here in these. So that might be the difference. It might be an intended difference. It might be a wear difference.
So this might be what we're looking for right here. That was the first try after I just kind of snug one of the bolts down. It's a little narrower there. I think we can adjust that though. We go on top, and it actually goes all the way in. Again, we don't want to smack it because we've got fresh paint on fresh paint there, and we do have some nicks from the wreckage. It's kind of like a USB. You ever plug those in, usually you get a 50-50 chance to get it right, and well, you get it wrong. So same thing on this. So we'll take a look at that and see if we can line it up just a little better. Maybe that gap on the bottom.
Alright, so I slipped these hinges on the opposite door, and they are a little bit different. They have a kick to them here, so it meets the contour of the body. And due to their hole pattern and the orientation of the way it fits on there, they only go on one way. You could put them on a different way, but it would be completely absurd. It wouldn't make any sense at all. It would actually go inward. So these will mount on the body like this. Now, since we did that quarter panel replacement a while back, it'll need the holes in the bottom drill. So I'm going to anchor the top in and see if I can use this as a good guide to pinpoint where the holes need to be exactly. You can do it from the backside, but the hole sections are so large in the frame that it's hard to tell exactly where they need to be. This will give you a little bit more precise setting on it. So.
Wonder if I could feed it in that way, right? Let's see. Get that facing flush up against the van, then you can get the screw in good. Alright, now what I did here, I took this welding clamp, carefully clamped this hinge to the frame. I used about the same spacing here as we got up here. This does not want us down here really, really good, so I'm just, it's touchy right now. But I went ahead and took my scratching tool, not this one, but another one. I basically marked the crosshairs inside of each one of these holes, one up and down, one side to side. We should be able to take this loose, drop this off of here, and see where our holes. Look, we got doors. Need adjusted, but so here is the doors installed. Now that left one is being an absolute pill, and I think I have a clue what it is, but I'm gonna give up on it for the night. Some of it's problem. I went ahead and marked the body lines here where they meet up with each other, and the quarter panel that we put on is probably 1/8 of an inch too low in the middle, but then the lower one and the top one lines up pretty good, but it does need to still go up some. But the main problem with that door is the gap is really even, actually from the bottom. It gets a little wide in the center, but as you get up here, the last 6 inches of it really worms in close to this side, so it's about 1/8 of an inch here, solid 1/4 inch all the way down, and just goes a hair above the quarter here. So the door could go that way. I installed part of the latch system in it, and so we have the top finger, and then we have the latch installed, and it's freshly greased. Now I noticed that this, when you mount it in there, it has some play. It can come toward the front a little bit. So it's kind of telling me I might have to open up maybe that hole a little bit bigger down here that we had to drill. Simply loosening this one and cocking it over doesn't seem to do a whole lot. But I fooled around with it a little bit, and it's a lot better than it was, I will say that. So I feel like we're kind of homing in on the problem. And this latch is actually pretty good. And also we put a little, the center, what do you call those things? They're little like adjusters that help it center and inside the door frame. So top and bottom, and then of course our finger here, put it in there, and then it latches in. And this one doesn't have anything in it yet, but it sets pretty good. The lines are a little off, but it still kind of showing me this door is setting low. So everything probably needs to just come up and then cock it over a little bit. The gap's a little wider at the top than it is down there between these two doors, so I think it's just a centering issue. And it just sets lower. You can see the top of this door and the top of this door, there's that much difference. So that's what we got there. It's looking like a van again, and I'll set it out here and you can kind of get a good look at it. When I come out here and look at it, this is what it's looking like. So it doesn't just look like a big shell right now. And here's one of the rear doors. The other rear door, I was going to paint it last evening, but we had a lot of gunk get in the gun, I guess you could say. So I gotta sand that down a little bit and we'll spray it. Put the 2 rear doors on, get them all adjusted in, and hopefully get through this part. It might take a little bit of modification to get it to do it, but I think it'll be all right. And then beyond that, I will probably go ahead and finish up a lot of our panels that go here and here, the radiator crossbeam support for the hood itself, and then the cowling. Now we do need to finish off the engine there. I've just been procrastinating on that pretty badly, but we'll get that set away. We'll get all this front end kind of flushed back up here, everything minus the grill and the bumper. And then I think what I'll do then, as we just keep thinking ahead, I might get a windshield in it and we'll just mask it off, and it'll kind of help us seal some of the interior out. And then we'll go ahead, seal these out with some painter's tape and all that sort of thing, all the windows, and then we'll start going to town on some body work here, because there's a lot of just little stuff that's showing up now, particularly since we've kind of uniformed it in a coat of primer. You know, we're seeing a lot of our body work that we did there, and you're seeing just a lot of the years of dings and bangs, and you know, some of the old mixed with the new. So, and one good thing about this body, or this project I should say, and it being this red, it's a solid color, it's no metallic in it, it's an absolutely just solid color of paint, is that you, as long as you get your paint from the same source, you can panel paint it. So if we want to do the rocker panels, the arch piece, and the front fender all in one kick, you can do it, and then you can do the doors later, the other door later, the rest of the, you know, everything, you know, you can do it in sections, do the whole roof later, and then eventually you could, you know, buff it all down. And so that just depends on how you do it, whether you're using a single stage or you know, a double stage where you're doing clear coats and all that sort of thing. It can all be done, and if you're not in the best circumstances, that's sometimes the best thing to do. So there it is for now, and we're just going to end it right here, and we'll jump into the other doors here soon. So make sure you check out our merchandise that we got below. It's down there in the link, down there in the description, and we appreciate y'all helping us out, following along, giving us some good words of encouragement, following along, hopefully, and helping you all out on your projects. So until next time, this is Adam at the Hoosier Garage. Take her easy.